Hello and welcome to today's podcast. I'm Susan Guthrie, your host, and today I have not one, but two very special guests to help you delve into why I always say that divorce is a sport better played as a team. These ladies have taken the idea of team approaches to divorce that you've all heard me talk about. They've taken it to the ultimate level, not the next level, but the ultimate level. So we're going to talk a little bit about what they've been doing and why it's so important to pull your team together as you're approaching your divorce. So ladies, welcome and thank you for joining me. I have Samantha Vona and Deanna Coyle, who are two of the co-founders of Vesta, a new vision for divorce. So ladies, thank you for joining us.
Thank you so much for having us. This is really a pleasure.
It's exciting. I was talking with Samantha a few weeks ago, and when she told me all the new innovations and exciting things that you are doing with Vesta, I think we were talking about something completely different. And in the middle of that, I said, wow, I have to get you guys on the podcast because I am always talking about how important it is to support yourself through the divorce process with a team. And I'm always talking to my professional colleagues or when I'm doing trainings for professionals about the importance of being open-minded to working together in integrative teams. And you guys really have sort of taken that to that ultimate level. So I was hoping we could start because I know that that you have reasons why you felt that this was so important, part of your backstory. And one thing that my listeners always say is it's really helpful to them to hear people's backstories. So starting with you, Deanna, could you just tell us why this is so important to you, why it was important to create Vesta?
It's incredibly important to me because divorce has been my family for generations. Both sets of my grandparents were divorced. My parents divorced when I was 5. And I went through divorce when my kids were 4 and 6. So saw this pattern of this unhealthy way of going through divorce where families were split up and the effect that it had and what people carried with them. So realized that there had to be a better way because my divorce was long, expensive. And a few years after that, it's like, I wish I could go back in time. There's no such thing as a time machine, but what I can do in partnering up with Samantha and Bob was putting together programs that help people get through it in a better way, that gives them hope and that changes the whole outcome for the family and what they can have in the future.
Yeah. Well, I have to tell you, I love the In a Better Way, because that's my website, Divorce in a Better Way. So
I resonate so much with that.
It's truly, and what you're doing, I mean, I truly believe a part of divorcing in a better way is understanding that the divorce of your grandparents and the divorce of your parents does not have to be the divorce you have to go through today. And you're creating that resource for people so that it changes the paradigm.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did go through divorce, unfortunately, in not the right way, but I realized, and I was feeling badly, what are my kids going to have? And I realized I can make a difference for my children. And while I'm doing it, make a difference for so many other people. That's our vision, to really make a difference for as many people as possible.
Well, you're on your way. And, Samantha, I know you have your own story that led you to partner with Deanna and Bob. So bring us up to speed.
Sure. I'm the child of divorce. My parents divorced when I was 3. My sister was 1. And 13 out of 14 couples in my family are divorced. So it's really all I ever knew growing up, excuse me. And I grew up with 8 grandparents, which was wonderful, but also complicated. And to hear later on, again, of course, not at 3 years old, but later on to hear the stories of my parents' divorce and how they really had no education and no one to empower them. That's really what we focus on in Vesta, is that educate, connect, and empower. And had my parents had the resources to just know where to start or what things to consider, they ended up getting quickly divorced, but then in disagreeing on many topics for many years after the fact. And so recent family members that have been divorced have been able to utilize the services that we offer and have had a smoother process. And again, just had a greater understanding of what what are the next steps, or how can they move through the better outcome for their family or their
Yeah.
immediate family.
And it's so important because I think people think that, okay, so I went through the divorce and maybe it wasn't the best process, but it's over now. So it's over for everyone, right? It's the divorce is over. It's over for my kids. And I think I see you both shaking your heads, and I think what you both just shared, I mean, this intergenerational experience of divorce that repeats on itself, but also trickles down and continues. Deanna, what you just said about, thinking if your children were ever to go through what you just went through, your parents went through, your grandparents went through, it's time to shift. It's time to change that paradigm. If we can't do it for ourselves, let's do it for others going through it today and for the future for sure. So explain to listeners what Vesta is, what Vesta does.
As Samantha mentioned, what we do is educate, connect, and empower people who are thinking about divorce, considering it, may have been blindsided by it, who are in the divorce process, and also after divorce. As you were mentioning, there's things that carry on afterwards, and people still need support in different areas.
Mm-hmm.
So we provide free events right now. Everything's being via webinar, and we've been able to reach a lot of people that way. And we have professionals that have gone through an extensive vetting process. We think that is so important, that we have professionals really in any area, because you normally think about an attorney. There's so many other things: financial, the house, even personal well-being. We have coaches and relationship coaches, career coaches, anything you could think of, personal stylists. And the professionals go through the vetting process, and we look for people who are really good in their field, but also are kind and compassionate, and their why for helping people through divorce is really important, that they really care about the person and helping them get through it in the best way possible for them and their family.
Yeah, that's a critical part. And that's a part that is really that maybe empathy piece, or that piece of, people who are invested in truly helping people. That this isn't, yes, we all make a living in some fashion helping people through divorce. But there's a different element when it comes to the table, like both of you who just shared your reasons for creating Vesta. So I know you pull everybody together, the professionals, into something you call hubs, which I just love that, this idea. For some reason, a hub makes me think of something warm and cozy and supportive. So good name for it. But Samantha, can you describe, how the hubs work?
Absolutely. So in each of our hubs, we have core professionals, which Deanna spoke to many of, the legal, the financial, the emotional, real estate, mortgage, really those key or front of mind categories for someone going through divorce. And they're thinking, okay, I need to speak to an attorney, or I need to consult my therapist whether or not to move forward in this divorce, or speak to my spouse. And then we have a lot of specialists as well. And Deanna mentioned, personal well-being. We have estate planning, college planning, professional move managers or organizers. So a lot of people are moving out of their home and downsizing, and they have 25 years of the kids' memories, and they're moving to a smaller location where it's just an overwhelming task to fathom where to start. And so even though that's not maybe the first thing they're thinking about, our team really helps them understand what are the most appropriate next steps to take. So again, each one of our hubs has those variety of professionals, and Deanna talked about the different events they put on. Each of them do 3 events a month that, as Deanna said, are free to the public, one being a divorce boot camp. We do a topic-specific workshop every month, sometimes on co-parenting during the holidays, or navigating a home sale and divorce in the spring market, which of course has been a little bit different these last few years. But again, really focusing on one area. And then we do Ask the Divorce Experts, which is really a Q&A, an informal opportunity for people to pop in, have a few questions, feel that they can really speak to the professionals. One of the biggest things we hear from the attendees is the compassion, the empathy that you express, is that they can feel from our professionals during the events, whether they're live in-person meeting or on a webinar setting, because it's part of the vetting process where we call it, professionally, the sniff test. We really can tell if someone's there and is there just to try to find business. And of course, yes, one of our mottos is doing well by doing good, because we want to all do well, but we really at the same time want to make sure people are doing good for those impacted by divorce and can relate to the really challenging time that many of us that are on the other side of divorce know is temporary, but often people in the process don't feel that yet, and are wanting guidance to move out of that place.
I first have to tell you, doing well by doing good. I love that. And it's so right, because, I don't think I've ever interviewed someone on this show that did not have a reason for being involved in trying to help people through divorce. And, I've heard that actually tossed out as a criticism, like, oh, all divorce professionals are just people who went through divorce and think they can then help other people through divorce. And I'm like, I think what it actually is people who have gone through the experience, learned from it, and have compassion and empathy for those who are going through it and want to share and help. I really feel that those who are out there and you're professionals, I've attended some of those free webinars, everyone. And we'll talk in a minute about where they can find those. But it's exactly that you can feel that the people that are presenting and your professionals are there because they do want to help people. And I don't want to lose track of how can people find out about those free webinars? You mentioned there are 3 per month.
They can go to vestadivorce.com and they can look up information on the professionals that we have, some background of what we do and how we help people in a better way and what makes us different. And then also, so they would go to the events tab, and then we have it by state. And we've been adding on states every month and being able to help more and more people. And there's also a concierge tab, which is really important. I know we're going to get to that, but I am lucky to head up the concierge. And I'm so passionate that I speak to so many people every day who are looking for guidance, looking for support, and being able to make such a profound difference just in that phone call, and have them being able to see for the first time I have hope, for the first time I see that I'm going to be supported and I will be able to get to the other side. So vestadivorce.com.
And I was actually just about to segue you into the concierge. So let's go there, because that is a service that I don't know anyone else providing. I don't, what is the number one thing that people in the early days of divorce say is, now what? Now what do I do? Where do I go? How do I find people? And you don't even know the people that you need. And that's one of the things is, I think anyone who's listening, I mean, you may not even know until you're in the process, you're going to need someone who's an organizational expert or a real estate expert or estate planning. But then the question becomes, well, where do I find these people? Vesta has already gone through the process for you, but you get people started with that concierge call. So Deanna, let's talk about that, because you mentioned you're actually answering some of those calls.
Oh, a lot of the calls. Yes. And so it's been 8, we haven't mentioned, I don't think, that it's been 8 years that we've been building Vesta. And so I've talked to thousands of people now. It's definitely a few hundred every week, and people in all stages, but whatever stage that they're in and they're looking for guidance, they're either feeling stuck or they don't know where to start. They're feeling overwhelmed. So we help them break things down into manageable steps. We educate them on the things that they're going to need and direct them to the right professionals, because we get to know the professionals really well. And in the call, we're hearing things from the person in terms of what they're going through and what they might need. They initially think, I need to go see an attorney. You're going to need likely an attorney or a mediator, someone at some point to help you. But when you march, what I did is I went right into an attorney's office, hired her, and she was excellent. And I proceeded to use her as my therapist. I had questions about my house. I could have gone to a realtor who specialized in helping people sell homes during divorce, and that would have been a free call versus being charged by the minute. So there's a lot of things that people don't realize that they need. So they learn that by talking to us in the concierge, and they learn it on our events and also by talking to our professionals.
Yeah, I think that's a critical point, and I hope everybody heard that, because it's still the number one knee-jerk reaction to I'm getting a divorce is to run out and hire an attorney. And I'm not saying I am a divorce attorney. So I'm not saying don't talk to us. We are a font of information. Our information is legal. And don't, you just mentioned using your attorney as a therapist, using your attorney as a real estate expert. We do know a lot, but you know what? It's less expensive and it's more comprehensive to have the right professionals answering the questions.
Absolutely. As people are concerned, oh, how much is this going to cost me? And it actually is much more cost effective and more efficient to use people who are experts in those fields and to go through it in a different way. So, yeah, very important.
Yeah, well, and the other, I think the other thing for people to realize, I once had a client say to me that she was afraid to call and ask me questions because she knew that it was going to get charged at my hourly rate, which is, the common, conundrum of a divorce attorney is, sure, we're a font of information, but I don't even want to mention what my hourly rate was by the time I finished practicing. Nobody wants to ask me a question at that rate, right? So if you have professionals, they don't even need to be free. They can just be a lot less expensive than your divorce attorney.
Yes, absolutely. And some of our mediators too, they might have clients where one or both of them are stuck. And so there's a lot more sessions and it's a lot more expensive. And they refer them to the therapist or the coach in the hub. And the coach works with them to help them then get unstuck and move through it more quickly and in a much better way for the family.
Yeah. And that's, it makes me think you also have divorce coaches in your hubs. Actually, one of my favorite divorce coaches, Kelly Myers, is in your hub in San Diego. Here's a little for anyone in San Diego, call Kelly if you need
Absolutely.
help.
She's wonderful.
She is wonderful. And, coaches are one of I think they are the secret weapon, or not weapon. Weapon's not the right word, right? They're the secret of a good divorce for most people.
Right.
If you can, in those moments before you start selecting an attorney, selecting your other team members, I almost think like a coach is one of the really first people to talk to, because that's going to help you pull it all together and then, start helping. And as you meet people as a concierge, I would imagine coaching is something that or coaches or something you direct them to.
Oh, absolutely. And most people don't know what a divorce coach does, what a life coach does. And we can talk about how they can help them through the process in a better way. And also something that's on our website is the Divorce Navigator. So that's something we've been, talking about doing for a while because people have been asking for that. Like, you look at what stage of divorce you're in, and then you can see in general, these are the professionals that you're going to need around you at that time. And what can those professionals do? How can they help you sell your house, for a larger amount of money? What are the different things that the different professionals can help you with?
Yeah, it's such a good point, because there's really so many areas where you can get help and support from outside professionals. Outside, I mean, the law office again. And I will say, I do this a lot on the show. So for my listeners, this won't be a surprise. I'm going to throw the divorce lawyers under the bus again. I always feel like I get to do that since I am one. And we're not that good at working integratively. We're not that good at pulling together teams in many cases, or when we pull together teams, we tend to think of the outside professionals as like outside. And we're the core hub. And I shouldn't say core hub because you guys have hubs, the core team. And that's why I like this idea of hubs. And, Samantha, I know you work with a lot of the professionals that are members of your hub. Your hubs work together as sort of an equal team, right? Equal and supportive team supporting each other as well.
They do, and each one of our hubs has one or multiple program managers, which are really the hub leader. So there is somebody to kind of lead the events and facilitate that comforting feeling, that empathy for for the individuals attending the events. And many of our hubs, the professional is actually the financial professional, and others it's the coach, and some it's the realtor. And a couple we have the mediator and the realtor and the coach. So there's some combination as well. But you're absolutely right that we want to level that playing field of helping everybody in the hub, all those professionals, understand their importance at the right time or in the right situation with the right client, because every divorce team does look different. And part of what the concierge team does is help the person figure out who they need on that divorce team. They may not need half the professionals. They're not applicable, or they may not need them yet, because it can be overwhelming sometimes to hear all the different things that you may need in divorce, and you're on day one, and and that list feels really long and really scary. And yes, it may be true that by the end of your divorce, you've used many of those services appropriately to help you, as Deanna said, be more cost effective and more efficient. But there is definitely a pecking order sometimes of who to use when, and to help you move through that smoothly. But absolutely, part of our hub culture is really a key focus. We have a hub culture strategist as part of our team, and his role in working with the hubs is to really help the collaboration exist. And so they have regular hub meetings outside of their events on a consistent basis to continue to get to know each other, to build that team morale, to use the same language. Because I often share that if the client is in the middle and you have one professional on one side and another professional on the other, not physically, but one professional that doesn't know the other, and they're trying to translate between their attorney and the CDFA, or they're trying to translate between the mortgage professional and the attorney what the numbers are and what they need. So much gets lost in translation. Divorce is like learning a new language. You can't do it all in one day or a few months. Even during the entire length of your divorce, you often don't learn the language of divorce. And if the professionals around you are speaking the same language and they can communicate directly with the client's permission, it really does save that time, money, and energy for someone to not have to feel that they need to digest every piece, but instead understand what they can and trust the professionals to work on their behalf and help them through as much as possible.
It's such a good point about the language. I'm always saying our language is important. And I was just I start a training tomorrow to train some new mediators. And one of the things that I find I have to do in those trainings is take my lawyers and teach them to not stop calling it, dissolution of marriage, and start calling it divorce, and stop calling it a retainer, stop talking about the plaintiff and the petitioner and the respondent and the other side. And, the words that we use are so important. So I love the idea that you've thought this through to such a level that even the languaging is something that you work on with your teams.
It's part of our training as well. As all of our hubs get onboarded, they go through multiple levels of training. And that's one of our key areas, is the language that they're all using at the events with the attendees, so that people hear that consistent language, and it's easier to digest and understand what these various pieces mean when they're hearing it consistently from the various professionals.
You really have, I guess, 8 years in, you ladies have a lot of experience of this. And Deanna, as you mentioned, you've spoken to thousands of people at this point, who I imagine are in that overwhelmed state in many cases.
I'd say 98% of the time they use the word overwhelmed. And of course, some are stressed, some feel isolated, but definitely overwhelmed. And so what we do is we help them break things down into manageable steps. And I'll also find out, or we in the concierge will find out, how do you like to tackle things? Do you like to have things broken down into manageable steps, to break them down? Or do you like to get a lot of information at once and really figure things out? Probably 95% of the people said they want things broken down into manageable steps. So we help.
I was gonna say, most people are not like, yeah, just turn on the fire hose and give it to me.
Right. But there are a few. Some people are like, I really want to learn as much as I can right up front. So, connect me to a lot of professionals, and I'll have conversations and then look at what's my strategy for going through this.
I would imagine you also get, because I know this is just, most parents at least concerned, you must get a lot of questions around supporting the kids through this process. That just seems to be, top of mind for parents. And so can you tell me what team members you have and just what sort of issues are you're often hearing around the kids?
We do have parent coaches, and that's something that's so important. And what they do is they actually work with one or both of the parents and how to, communicate with the other parents, how to communicate with the kids to help them through different things. And something that I learned going through my divorce, of course, being really concerned about my young kids is, and what the impact on them was going to be. And what we hear consistently from our life coaches and our parent coaches is to make sure that when you tell the kids, you let them know that the divorce is not their fault. And you would think that that's something that kids know. I know for myself, going through when my parents divorced and my mom, would come to visit and then she'd have to leave again. She moved to another state. I didn't understand why she couldn't be there. And I thought it was because I wasn't good enough. So to stress to the kids, it's not your fault. Both parents will always be here for you and always love you. That is really important. Another thing is, do not use your kids as a messenger. Okay. Don't put them in the middle. Tell your father this, tell your mom, and that's putting them in the middle. Like, you have to learn how to communicate in the best way with the other parent. And a big one is don't badmouth the other parent. So when people are in the midst of it, and that's what a coach can do, a therapist can help you work through these issues. So you always keep in mind, I love my kids more than I may be disliking my spouse, soon to be ex-spouse right now. And because the other parent, that's their DNA. So if you're bad mouthing the parent, well, if my dad's bad, I must be part bad. So there's a lot of things that people, you would think they would know, but in the midst of it, they could use some guidance on how best to go through it with the kids.
That one is top of mind. Don't badmouth the other parent because your children are 50% of both of you. I've had people say, my kids don't think when I say their dad's a jerk that I'm talking about them. And the other day I was watching the movie Split, the film Split has a sequel coming out, Split Teens. And it's the same kids 6 years later.
Wow.
It's so deep. I'm going to have Ellen Bruno on again to talk about it. It's coming out early next year, but I was watching one of the kids talking, and it was one of the little boys who's now a teenager. And he said, well, my mom's always talking about what a loser and a deadbeat my dad is. And, I get it. He's not a good guy, but, I look just like him. So I kind of wonder what that means she thinks about me. And your heart breaks. Yes. It just breaks wide open in the moment you're watching that film. So for the parents out there who did not hear what Deanna just said, hear it. It is so important not to badmouth your co-parent to your children. You are badmouthing your children. They take it inside and it hurts them. It's terrible. So I want to make sure, because we've talked, Samantha, a little bit about your professionals and what you do to onboard them and the things that they do. But I do have a lot of listeners who are professionals. And so for those who are out there going, hey, wow, how do I become a part of a hub? I want to do, this is me. I'm an empathetic, sympathetic, supportive person, professional. How do they reach out? What do they do if they want to become a part of one of your hubs?
Yeah, absolutely. So also at vestadivorce.com, there's a tab for interested professionals, and that would be the first place to go. We do have a bi-weekly webinar that is for interested professionals. It's part of our part of our vetting process as a requirement to listen into that. It's about an hour, but really a full overview of what it's like to be a professional involved in Vesta. We, as of October, will have 20 hubs across the country and be in 24 states. So really exciting that we're almost at half of the states across the country, but our absolute mission is to be in every state, in every city, and really be a household name that people know they can turn to for trusted professionals to help them navigate what can be a really challenging process and what can be an elongated process without the right resources and support. So our professionals, again, would be interested and go through an application process. And if they're selected to be in one of our hubs, then I mentioned the onboarding and whatnot. I also realized we haven't yet mentioned for people impacted by divorce or professionals kind of how it all works when these events are free. So I do want to just speak to that because I think it's an important question. How can you operate if the events are free? And we do that because our professionals pay a membership fee. And so they provide their presentation, their content to the public during those free events we spoke about in order to ensure people have access. So we have people that have very complicated divorce situations and need every single professional in that group and for quite some time, potentially, depending on the level of litigation potentially involved or high conflict. And we have others that have less resources and maybe need the guidance of one of our coaches or the realtor eventually when they are able to buy a home down the road. So we really want to make sure it's an accessible resource to everybody because, as we know, divorce impacts a large population here, and we want to ensure people have access.
That's so important. That I'm so glad you brought that up. So Samantha, thank you, because that is one, just one more positive of what you've built here is this is not, this high level elite expensive service. In fact, I do want to mention you have offered a complimentary consultation to listeners so that they might even get to speak with you, Deanna, right? So could you explain a little bit about that? Because I know there are going to be people who are like writing this down right now.
So again, on our website, vestadivorce.com, the concierge tab talks about how the concierge can help them through the process. And there's also a link to sign up for a consult with us. And there's also a short intake form that asks a few questions so that we're more prepared in talking with the people. We're more prepared. And also what's important is we help prepare them for their calls with the professionals so that they don't have to so they get a complimentary consultation from most of the professionals. And they don't have to spend that time telling their story. They actually can hone in on what's really important to find out from the professionals, to find out what they need to know. And if they're looking for a professional in that area, which professional do they want to work with who really resonates with them?
That's something that I think people don't value enough is that, and you probably get this, Deanna, right? They pick up the phone, they get on the concierge call and it's just blah, they just let it all out without there being that structure that you just referenced, right? That understanding of the information the professional needs and having it all pulled together. So right there is one huge benefit of doing, even just signing up for the free consult is that you're going to start breaking down the issues that you might want to talk about with professionals. Yes. I love that. Love that. So ladies, I so appreciate what you are doing to help people to divorce in a better way. And, Vesta, I love this name, a new vision for divorce. I think for all of us in this world of trying to change the paradigm of divorce so that it isn't the one that, Deanna, you went through, as well as your grandparents and your parents, and Samantha, your parents, so that people of our generation and future generations can really have a new experience. And you're really doing that, starting with that team approach, but everything that you've built out from both the professional side and the consumer side is just so innovative and helpful to people. So I appreciate that. And I thank you on behalf of everyone who's listening. So thank you both for being here. I'm going to put all of the information in the show notes, and I urge everyone to reach out for that consultation. You're going to get more benefits from that in a short period of time than Googling or anything else. Deanna?
No, so true. And also one thing I wanted to mention, that going through divorce, is a challenging time, of course. And these challenges in our life are the opportunities for personal growth and change. And that's what it's done for me and so many other people who are on the other side of it. So to really be looking at that, to get through it in the best way, and to look at what your life is going to look like And it might not be what you were wanting it to be right from when you got married, right? But things change and you can have an amazing life.
You will. That's why it's divorce and beyond, right, people? So
Yeah.
I love it. So thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.